Two receivers to Phillips' left, one to his right. Caesar takes it up the middle, avoids one tackle, has one man to beat, goes around him, crossing the 20, crossing the 15, picks up a block, down the far sideline, over the 1 yard line, touchdown Hempfield!
Live from our Seton Hill University studios, this is Westmoreland on the Gridiron on the Westmoreland Sports Network. Here's your host, Shawn Meyers.
And welcome into another episode of Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m., you can catch myself, Shawn Meyers, and my partner, Dan Flickinger, right here on the Westmoreland Sports Network, coming to you for the second time here for the 2022 season. And this should be a very, very good episode. We have a lot to get to. I'm very excited about this one. Every team in action last week. We'll run down all of the scores from week one, as well as the top performers around the WPIAL in Westmoreland County. We'll have the always popular plays of the week. 6 different plays this week crack the list. We'll also talk to a couple of really, I think, tremendous guests. Shawn, the head coach of the Burrell Buccaneers, his team off to a great start. He is such an interesting guy and, in a sense, I think a football genius. We're going to hear from him a little bit later. And Gino Caesar, as the Hempfield area Spartans go back-to-back for our players of the week. He had a terrific game once again for the Spartans. Lastly, we'll wrap up with the look ahead to the week 2 preview. But Flick, as we talk about the week that was, I mentioned Hempfield area, obviously opening some eyes. But I think more than anything else, you look at a team like Greater Latrobe, they certainly caught a lot of attention because they are now 2-0. They did so in thrilling fashion, week defeating Franklin Regional, double overtime, one of a number of games that went to extra time. I think there was 5 total in the WPIAL. None better than this one. Greater Latrobe wins it. And it was the star from week 0 that did it once again, Robbie Fulton. He has really, I think, changed that program.
Oh, my gosh. They said last week the secret is out. And even though the secret was out, Franklin Regional couldn't do a whole lot to stop him. Just broke a couple of huge runs in that game, consistently picked up yardage. And then in overtime, who do you turn to? You turn to Robbie Fulton to win you the football game. And that game was so much fun, even watching back to it, of course, with Jonathan Whaley going nuts on both sides and Franklin Regional being down and thinking that, here we go again. Franklin Regional going to come back and beat Latrobe again like they did last year, even though the deficit wasn't as much in this game. It was just a lot of fun. It's what high school football is all about, man. Just a back-and-forth game, and Latrobe wins it in the end by, of course, Robbie Fulton running it in.
I think the most incredible aspect of this is what you mentioned is the recent history because, yes, Ron Prady is new to Greater Latrobe, but he knows what happened last year, and the vast majority of his players were there when they were on the wrong end of just, quite frankly, a just unbelievable collapse that cost them the playoffs. It was a conference game last year, not the same playoff implications, but those players remember that. So for them to maybe get that flashback, but find a way to overcome it, I think that's a huge step forward for a team that lost most of its close games last year. Now they get this close victory and they sort of, to an extent, exercise those demons.
It's interesting you say that, Shawn, because I heard Coach Prady say that after the game and like, we need to win these type of games to develop our program, to keep taking steps forward in our program development. You know, we're up in the game, we're down in the game, we come back and win the game in overtime. I think that says a lot, that it will really help these kids in terms of their confidence going forward. Like, you know, thinking, hey, even when the chips are down, even when we're facing adversity, we've been here before, we can win the game. And I think in the past, that's something that Latrobe could not do consistently, which we saw in a couple of last couple of seasons under Jason Maruco, where they did have the lead against some good teams, or were right there in there against some good teams like Penn Hills, and just couldn't quite close the game out. I think it's a little bit different with Latrobe, at least it seems like it this year, Shawn. And you look, hey, these kids, there's a lot of talent on this Latrobe team. They have a head coach that had a lot of success at Penn Trafford as an assistant, but certainly understands the game very well. They win the WCCA passing tournament, which I know isn't a big deal, but I think to this specific Latrobe team, in order to keep that confidence going, it was a big deal. And then they start the season 2-0 with a big victory, a lopsided one over the rival. and then they win a back and forth slugfest in overtime against Franklin Regional. So I think right now you really couldn't have asked for a better start in terms of even the intangibles for Greater Latrobe.
Yeah, and they've been meaningful games as well. Yeah, they should beat Derry. They're a much bigger school, more talented, but that is a rivalry game. And then this Franklin Regional matchup, we mentioned that was a former conference opponent that they had some great battles with. Many years it came down to those two teams to see who would make the playoffs. They're going to have another one this week in the Hempfield area Spartans. We'll focus on that a little bit later. But a great start for Ron Prady and crew. We enjoyed talking to him last week. I'm sure he was even more excited this week after that thriller.
And why don't you tell everyone what he said to you when he watched back to the program?
He said he'll never get sick of talking to me because I said I'd already interviewed him like a half dozen times in the first couple of weeks of the season. But
the funniest part about that was he had texted you, and at first you're like, what is he talking? Oh, okay. Yep. Now I remember.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, he definitely was tuning in to our every word here, which
that's right. Coach, if you're watching, what's up?
Absolutely. I don't know that John Ruane was quite as jovial as his former assistant, however, because the head man at Penn Trafford was on the wrong end of really kind of an upset loss. They lost to McKeesport. Now, that's a very good McKeesport team, but Penn Trafford, defending state champs in 5A, playing at home, you figured they would have the advantage against a 4A Tigers team. 19-7, McKeesport won that one. And really, I think it reminded me a lot of a year ago. Penn Trafford lost a rare home game against Peters Township where they were mistake prone. They just didn't make the big plays, especially on offense. And I felt the exact same way. They get just one touchdown. And after we talked about Conlon Green and his unbelievable week 0 performance, he took a step back against a really, really good team. But maybe it's now the question, will they be able to have enough offensive firepower when they go against the best of the best? Certainly there's a lot to work upon.
There is, and I think that has to continue to develop. I mentioned during the broadcast that, yes, Conlon Green had a historic game in his first ever varsity start against Cannon McMillan on the road. That was just absolutely incredible that he was able to accomplish that. But let's not forget, that was his first varsity start. And I'm not saying that, he was thinking everything was going to come easy, but as a human being, if you have that much success the first time you do anything, you think that's going to continue. And it didn't. And credit to McKeesport for that. I mean, obviously they have a ton of athletes. They're a really good football team this year, and they were able to make life really tough on not only Conlon, but the offensive line, which Penn Trafford, that's one of their biggest strengths year after year, especially this year. They were able to, get to Conlon and put pressure on him. And obviously Bobby Boyd in the secondary is just such a ball hawk. I mean, he's just all over the place. Made 3 interceptions. Yeah, 3 picks. And the one I remember, thinking back before we even started the show, just thinking back to the game, one Penn Trafford nearly could have had a long touchdown, but unfortunately Conlon just underthrew the ball a little bit. But Bobby Boyd was there to undercut it too. So he made a really nice play on it. So I think Penn Trafford will be okay, obviously. I mean, they started, again, as everyone talks about, and as you mentioned, Shawn, they started last year 2-2. They're going to have a crazy hard non-conference schedule. But again, I think these are the games that can help develop some guys that maybe aren't used to either playing positions or aren't used to playing varsity time, like a Tasso Whipple, who had a long touchdown run. To continue to develop that running game. The defense didn't play great. They did have some big plays. I feel like they took over the game at one point, and then McKeesport started to take it over. So I think that kind of went back and forth. I think the defense will be all right. But I do think that, again, the more that they play these quality opponents, and they're going to, I think that'll help them in conference play. So much like last year, I think this PT team we see right now on this Wednesday or last Friday is going to be much different than the one we see later in the season. However, this conference is interesting, with some teams like Hempfield kind of rising a little bit. Obviously, we know how good Gateway is, so it might be a battle.
Yeah, it's and again, everyone's now gunning for Penn Trafford, and not that they weren't already an established program, but when you win, especially a state title, every team that goes against you, they circle that game first on their calendar. It looked like a very motivated McKeesport team. That's going to be the case against Woodland Hills. That's going to be the case in all the conference games as well. I'm sure more times than not, PT will respond, but we saw maybe they are not. They certainly have some room for improvement on the offensive end.
By the way, I know Sean Benjamin's not with us tonight, but he did jinx Penn Trafford last week by saying John Ruane has never lost at home to McKeesport. So, Sean, I'm sorry, I had to call you out.
Yep, it's the other Sean that is bad luck charm.
Sean Benji.
Well, just about every team that we cover was in their second game on Friday. The two teams that weren't, Franklin Regional was playing its first game. We mentioned that they came up short in double overtime, 36-33 to Greater Latrobe. But the other team was Bell Vernon area, and they are now 1-0. So the Leopards had a nice little test in week one. I know a lot of eyes were on it. James Franklin was in the house. He made his grandiose entrance.
He had a bird's eye view.
Yeah, it was a sight to be seen. That was a big time matchup because of the Stars, but I think it was also a test for Bell Vernon area, and they passed it. They defeated Laurel Highlands 41-20. So the Leopards now 1-0. Remember, this is a team that made it to a championship in 4A. Somewhat surprisingly came up short. They dropped down to 3A. They lose some great players, but people think they might be a team to beat. They got up to a really good start. They had to sort of overcome some issues in the second half, but they did hang on to beat Laurel Highlands. I think it's a good start, all things considered. Quentin Martin got off to obviously another great performance. So I think that this team's sort of picking up right where they left off a year ago, albeit with some new faces in there.
Yeah, and there's some things that they have to clean up. And, thinking back to the Franklin Regional Latrobe game, obviously Franklin Regional, as you mentioned, Sean, didn't play a game last week. And Lance Getsy, after the game, said that he felt that their first half wasn't great. You look at Bell Vernon, I think it was 16 penalties or something like that in the game. And that maybe comes from playing in their first game where there's some other teams, obviously, that played in a week 0. So, that may have something to do with it. But I think it says a lot about Bell Vernon that they are able to build up a 21-0 lead. They're going up against Rodney Gallagher. They take all these penalties playing in their first game of the season. And, they're able to do what they did and able to, get that win. That's a big win for them, certainly, even though it's non-conference, much like Penn Trafford. Bell Vernon also has a really good non-conference slate. So it was a good way for the Leopards to kind of get started.
Yeah, and they ended up playing both quarterbacks, and both guys, I think, did a good job. Stieber and Laux. And Laux, he's a physical specimen out there. That guy,
he is
6'4", 6'5", looks like if you ever need a yard on a QB sneak, that's the guy to call. I know Quentin Martin, I think, got some touches out of the Wildcat as well. So they're going to have a lot of a different look on offense. But again, this team, I think right now you probably say they are the team to beat in 3A until proven otherwise. There's not a defending champion. Central Valley moved up to 4A. So it's a very wide open 3A. But certainly you win your first game against a pretty good Laurel Highlands team. No better way to start the season for Matt Humbert's crew. That'll do it for the biggest takeaways, but we have a lot to get to on this show. We're going to run down all the scores across Westmoreland County. We'll also list the top performers, the always popular plays of the week. We're going to hear from Shawn, the head coach of the Burrell Buccaneers, and Gino Caesar of Hempfield area, voted as our player of the week. We'll also take a look ahead at week 2. That's as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
That's the power of Bowser. Yeah.
Coach, building a championship team, I know for you, it's all about the details. The same goes with the Bowsers.
No doubt about it. It's the tiny little details every single day, not forgetting about it the next day and maybe doing it the following day. I think details are everything.
As Coach says, get your eyes right on the power of Bowser.
The Bowser family is proud to have Coach Narduzzi as part of our team.
At D'Annunzio's, our menu is extensive with an abundance of selections. The next best thing to being at one of our 3 locations is having our frozen food and jarred sauce in your own home. For our frozen food selections, we have wedding soup, pasta fagioli, lasagna, stuffed cheese rigatoni, ricotta cavatelli, and potato gnocchi. Our jarred sauces include the original, smooth, marinara, and tomato cream. These products can all be found at our restaurants or your local grocer.
And we roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Thanks for tuning in, spending your Wednesday night with us. Shawn and Dan talking high school football around Westmoreland County, maybe a little bit of college football momentarily as well. We got a lot to get to as the show rolls on. We'll go to the Plays of the Week segment in just a little bit. Shawn Liotta of the Burrell Buccaneers will also join us, the very successful head coach who's guided his team to a 2-0 start. Speaking of 2-0, Gino Caesar and the Hempfield area Spartans also have won their first 2 games. We'll talk to him as our player of the week, and we'll look ahead at the week 2 preview. For those who are wondering, well, week 2, yes, it starts week 0. So it is always, we'll let one off. Yeah, it's more complicated than it needs to be. Nonetheless, let's look at the rest of the scores from week 1. That's this past week. And we already mentioned Greater Latrobe, 36, Franklin Regional, 33, 2 overtimes. You can go back and watch that one. I would recommend it. A terrific, terrific game for both Westmoreland County teams. Another one you can go back and watch, well, if you're a Penn Trafford fan, maybe you don't want to. McKeesport, 19, and the Warriors, 7. We have that one on video. As is the Hempfield area 49-0 victory over Connellsville, I should say. Go back and watch that one. Flick, this Spartans team, they've scored 49 each week. They've given up 3 total points. Just incredible the turnaround they've had so far.
It really is. I mean, they have been absolutely dominant, and that's what they're supposed to do against, again, a Greensburg-Salem team that they had to come back and beat last year, but it's not the same Golden Lions team. They lost a lot of good players due to graduation. So Hempfield went out and did what they were supposed to do in one half of football. And then you look at last week against a Connellsville program that, you know, is obviously every season trying to do all that they can to get some wins, but it has been tough for them. And so Hempfield took care of business and did what they were supposed to do in a home game. So it's one thing to say, yeah, they haven't really been tested quite yet, but it's another thing to say that the tests that have come their way, they've aced. I mean, they've done what they were supposed to do against the first 2 teams. They're riding high. Latrobe's riding high. When's the last time we said that both teams are riding high in a game against one another? I mean, this Friday, that game should be a lot of fun at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, it's for Hempfield area, you win these games against lesser teams, but the way they're doing it, I think they have some very, very real confidence heading into Friday night. A team that needed a little bit of a confidence boost and got it was Greensburg-Salem. It came at the expense of Derry area in an all-Westmoreland matchup. You can go back and watch that one. The Golden Lions 26, the Trojans 17. East Allegheny wins against Jeanette as the Wildcats 31 and the Jayhawks 12. Dom Pecora's team now 2-0, Jeanette 0-2. You can go back and listen to that one. And then we had a very special Saturday night football broadcast. If you want to go back and watch it, it was a good one. Bishop Canevin, the defending WPIAL 1A champs, they win ultimately 30-14 against Greensburg Central Catholic. The Centurions, though, I know you saw firsthand, Flick. The talent is very, very real there, including one pretty special freshman.
Samir Crosby. And I heard big things about him when he was in 8th grade, thinking that he may stay in Jeanette, he may go to Greensburg Central Catholic, he ends up going to GCC. But man, I'm telling you, he made some big plays in that game. Certainly, he returned a kickoff for a touchdown. He had a couple of interceptions. But if you just watch the kid play, not necessarily only his highlights, he does a lot of things that normal freshmen just don't do. He actually stuck the Bishop Canevin running back, who had a real big game, in one of the plays and just made a beautiful form tackle, and the rest of the cavalry was able to wipe him up too. I mean, this kid is going to be very, very, well, he already is. He's a special player as just a freshman. It really is pretty amazing. But Shawn, you look back at that game, man, you know, GCC going up against Bishop Canevin, the number 2 ranked team in the state in Class Single A. And, you know, Bishop Canevin really controlled the game in the second half, but GCC had a couple of chances to go ahead by multiple touchdowns before the end of the first half that maybe could have changed the game a little bit. The Centurions were up 6-0, had the ball at the 17-yard line in the first quarter. They didn't score despite the fact that Craggett caught a touchdown pass. It was called back because of illegal motion. And then late in the first half, so this would have been late in the second quarter, the Centurions leading 14-13. they got another touchdown called back, this time because of an eligible man downfield. So 2 touchdowns called back in that first half. And after the second one got called back, that's when Bishop Canevin went down and kicked the field goal to go ahead 16-14 at halftime. So, I mean, you get those 2 touchdowns to stand. Maybe the second half was a little bit different with Bishop Canevin trailing by maybe 2 touchdowns as opposed to being ahead where they could run the football. But don't get me wrong, Bishop Canevin's a heck of a team, and the way they throttled GCC in the second half was something to behold, and also the way that they just churned out yardage. They're very, very impressive. But I'll tell you what, it was a really fun football game in the first half. Second half kind of grinded down to a halt a little bit. But again, I think if GCC is maybe able to connect on those couple of touchdowns, maybe the game is a little more open in the second half, which would play into the hands of the Centurions. Ryan Kimmel was banged up in the game. He was limping around, hurt his knee. Hopefully he'll be okay. I know we didn't see Jaden Kennedy in the second half for GCC either. So those are certainly a couple of names that we hope to see back in the lineup for the Centurions.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of give a tip of the cap to the WPIAL schedule makers, right? Yeah. I mean, these are all games that the WPIAL scheduled for non-conference. There's only one conference game that was in 6A, but the rest, they were all non-conference. Week 0, the teams can make their own schedule. Week 1, it comes from the WPIAL, but they've taken input from the teams. Who do they want to play? Who do they not want to play? And then they also looked what geographically makes sense, what makes sense in terms of level playing field in terms of talent. And we got some great games. And that was a game that, I think a lot of people really wanted to see, because you weren't going to get in conference anymore since Bishop Canevin went to another conference in 1A, but they're the defending champs. GCC to some extent is loaded up. So you get a really, really good matchup that fans are interested in. And then I think both teams ultimately benefit from in the long term.
And you have to remember too, Bishop Canevin's really good. Greensburg Central Catholic this year has a loaded team. That kind of offset by their opponents aren't necessarily the cream of the crop. I think that makes this game even more important for, again, kind of getting ready for the playoffs down the road. You play a really good. I think Marco Thomas said that after the game. He said, hopefully next time we play them, things will go a little bit different, something along those lines. So he's hoping to see them again, and that may just be the case. So, sometimes the competition in single A isn't quite what, the other classifications are. That, again, coupled with GCC and Bishop Canevin both being really good, I think it was great to see those two teams play early in the season. And then, again, maybe GCC can see this is what we have to get to in order to beat Bishop Canevin this year. Absolutely.
That's another one you can go back and watch on archive on Westmoreland Sports. Other games around Westmoreland County from week 1, Penn Hills knocks off Norwin 26-7. The Knights have struggled offensively. They are now 0-2. It was an offensive struggle for Kiski area as well. The Cavaliers shut out against Pine Richland 33-0. That was an old conference matchup. They're no longer in the same conferences with the Cavs dropping down. They now sit at 0-2. As we mentioned before, Bell Vernon area wins its first game as the Leopards hold serve, defeating Laurel Highlands 41-20 in a matchup of two of the very best players individually in all of the state of Pennsylvania. The Burrell Buccaneers, we're going to hear from their head coach in a little bit. They go to 2-0. They needed overtime, but they defeated Deer Lakes 27-21. And the Buccaneers, they look like a completely different team from a couple years ago. They used to throw it all over the field. Now they run it almost every single time. But good coaches adapt to their personnel. It is working so far for the Buccaneers. That's a good win for them to go to 2-0. Mount Pleasant area 35, York 7, as Robbie Labuda does it again. It came in a defeat in week 0, Flick, but Labuda, he goes 200-plus yards. He contributes in all these different ways. He's kicking extra points. This time it leads to a victory 35-7 against the Cougars. He is a guy that we've known for a couple years now, but I think he's right up there with just about anyone in Westmoreland County in terms of what he's contributing here in 2022.
Yeah, maybe he's flying under the radar for some people that maybe don't pay close attention to Mount Pleasant football, but it's certainly hard for the first two games not to see Labuda's name popping up everywhere. As you mentioned, Shawn, over 200 yards, almost 250 yards rushing, 5 for 5 in extra points. Don't forget how important those are, especially when Mount Pleasant plays in close games. And, of course, those 3 touchdowns. And Robbie also playing some soccer for the Vikings this year,
the extra points, that's probably easy for a soccer player.
I was going to say, he probably closes his eyes and just runs up and kicks the ball right through the uprights. So he's certainly used to doing that, on the pitch and now on the field here, kicking extra points. So good to see him continuing his really solid start. And Mount Pleasant needs that, Shawn. They really need that from Robbie.
Yeah, a year ago is sort of a timeshare, him and Aaron Alexson. This year it's all Labuda, and he has more than answered the bell so far. Another all-Westmoreland matchup took place between Ligonier Valley and Southmoreland. It was a close one, but the Rams ultimately held on 27-18 as they go to 2-0. The Scotties fall to 0-2. But again, another matchup that I think a lot of people in the area were excited to see. Apollo Ridge edges Valley 34-19 as the Vikings fall to 0-2. And Cornell defeats Monessen 35-6. The Greyhounds also winless. Couple of college games as both Seton Hill and St. Vincent opened their season, and unfortunately both of them had pretty disappointing outcomes. Wheeling 25, Seton Hill 11. You can go back and watch that one. If you like offense, you might not want to watch that one. It was late in the first half. The score was 2-2. One of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. It really didn't get much better for Seton Hill in the second half.
This was the same night that a thriller was happening not far from us at Acrisure Stadium. My gosh. Yeah, 2-2 late in the first half. Seton Hill gets the opening safety, so they're up 2-0. And then they tried to punt from near their own goal line. A snap went over the head of their punter and out of bounds through the back of the end zone. So that's why the game was 2-2 at that point. But I don't know what else to say, Shawn. I'm interested. I haven't talked to Coach Day yet. I will do that later on this week for our pregame show from Shippensburg, which we'll have for you on Saturday. I can't imagine that he wasn't extremely disappointed because, he was very excited for this season, very excited for this game. He actually said to me that he thought that he wouldn't really need to say much to his players because they were so excited for the game. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, as a head coach, when you go out and your team does something that you're not expecting and it's negative, it's extremely disappointing. You almost have to turn into a psychologist, if you will, and make sure that they have the right focus for this week because they still have the talent. But again, it certainly didn't show on Thursday.
For a long time, it had the feeling of a repeat of last year's game. We mentioned Greater Latrobe and Franklin Regional, almost the same scenario, but a different outcome. This one had a different outcome as well because last year was Seton Hill doing enough defensively and then getting a couple key special teams plays. I thought that for the most part, they did enough defensively, but Wheeling did have a couple nice drives. And then Seton Hill just shot himself in the foot on offense. And the turnovers, the mistakes you mentioned, they took not only that one safety, they had another safety go against them.
Right.
Turnovers on downs. It was offensively a disaster. And ultimately, it was a different outcome because last year they hung on. This year, they watched it slip away. So they're now 0-1. So is St. Vincent. The Bearcats had a fourth quarter lead, could not make it stand. Stevenson comes on the road and wins 25-21, handing St. Vincent a loss in its season opener as well. So college-wise, some disappointment certainly around Westmoreland County. Hopefully their second game for both teams will be much, much better.
Yeah, a lot of potential coming in for both teams, both finishing 5-6 last year. So hopefully next week they'll be able to turn it around.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the top performers from week one in the entire WPIAL and specific to Westmoreland County as well. This will be the top passer, rusher, and receiver in the entire county, and then the best overall in the entire WPIAL. And I do want to know, because this is something you and I talked about off the air before, we get different numbers depending on, is it coming from the team stats? Is it coming from a newspaper publication? And sometimes they're very close. Sometimes they're identical. You will get discrepancy. So if anyone's wondering, we're trying to get it all as uniform as possible. It doesn't always work out like that. But the numbers that we have, this is what we'll go with for now, the top passer, rusher, and receiver. Chris Sabrone of Peters Township was the top passer, 19 of 37, 323 yards for Peters Township. That was the top mark in the entire WPIAL. Quite a bit of a drop-off if you go for Westmoreland County. Cody Rubrecht of Greensburg-Salem, 9 of 15. He passed for 157. in the Golden Lions victory. Then it was Jake Phillips. He didn't have to throw a lot, but he goes 8 of 14 for 131 for Hempfield area and their decisive win. Blake Revore for Derry area, 10 of 23 for 128 yards. Roman Sarnik of Franklin Regional, 7 of 15 through the air for 123. And then Conley Green, we mentioned he had a rough night. He goes for 100 yards on 12 of 38 passing in the Warriors' loss. The top rusher, it is David Davis of Amani Christian, 261 yards on the ground. I guess some people noticed he got a Penn State offer a couple days afterwards. So
I did see that, yes. Yep. Davey getting the Amani Christian or the Penn State offer there. How do you feel about that, Shawn?
I'll say this. You get in with guys early because I think he's maybe just a sophomore. Mm-hmm. You get in with guys early and then you monitor them and see. They show the promise, then they have to continue to repeat that and improve over the next couple of years. But anytime you can get in with a promising player. And we saw basketball and football. Amani Christian absolutely loaded with talent from some very, very young, promising players there. So things are trending up, certainly for the Saints. Not far behind him was Robbie Fulton of Greater Latrobe, 251 yards. They needed every single one of them in that double overtime thriller. Then it's the aforementioned Robbie Labuda of Mount Pleasant area, 243 on the ground. Gino Caesar, we're going to hear from him a little bit later. The Hempfield area Spartan senior accumulates 167 yards rushing. Ahmad Ward had a nice performance for Derry area at 154 on the ground. And then Devin Beatty of the Burrell Buccaneers, 142 to lead them to an overtime victory. The top receiver in the entire WPIAL, well, it came at the expense of Westmoreland County's Bell Vernon area. It was Laurel Highlands' Keandre DeShields, 14 receptions, 156 yards. Aiden Hudak of Franklin Regional had 116 receiving on 4 catches. And then Hempfield area's Ian Tufts, 4 for 100 to round out the top receivers.
For those of you that are in a PPR fantasy league, Shawn, that is point per reception, and have Keandre DeShields in your high school fantasy league, which probably doesn't exist. Maybe exists in other parts of the country. Who knows? 14 catches, 156 yards. That's a lot of points, my friend.
Yeah, and it was mostly Rodney Gallagher who was throwing to him.
Yeah.
Rodney, the whole talk was he was going to go back to his more natural receiver position after playing quarterback a year ago. At some point in the game, they said, you know what? We've got to move him back to quarterback. You see that every now and then because it just wasn't working. I think Gavin Roebuck at York actually did the same thing. He was supposed
look at Jackson Pons at Norwin as well. They'd like to have him as a receiver. They'd like to have him out there, but they got to use him behind center sometimes too.
Yeah, I remember one of the first high school football games I ever covered. J.P. Holtz, who went on to have a great career at Pitt, play in the NFL. He was a terrific tight end. They didn't have anyone who could throw to him, so they just lined him up in the backfield and had him run. Because sometimes you have to find a way to get your best player the ball. If it's not going to work as a through the passing game, maybe you make them the quarterback or the running back.
Or throw to themselves. That works too.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect has that down
absolutely
from 1990. Anyway, that'll do it for the top performers and the week 1 scores as well. But when we come back, you want to stick around because it is the always popular plays of the week. Everyone wants to see this. We have 6 plays to get to. That's upcoming. So don't go anywhere as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
Your next golf adventure awaits at Manor Valley Golf Course in Export. Manor Valley offers 18 scenic holes over gentle sloping fairways and the purest putting surfaces around. Manor Valley Golf Course in Export is the perfect place to host your next golf outing, banquet party, or shower. Manor Valley also offers league play and great membership rates. Tee times available. Call 724-744-4242. Visit ManorValleyGC.com.
Right now at Smale Kia, get 2.99% APR on the new 2023 Kia Sportage and Sportage Hybrid with Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Join us in saluting Smale Kia's shining stars, supporting student athletes in our area.
As we roll along here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron, Shawn, Meyers, Dan Flickinger, it is now time. Are you ready?
I am ready, Shawn.
Okay. It is now time for the always popular plays of the week. We've got 6 tremendous plays this week. So let's begin with Hempfield area. As the Spartans, again, they dominated the competition. And it was running back Gino Caesar. We're going to hear from him in just a bit. He was heavily involved, scoring 4 touchdowns. His third score came on a long run early in the third quarter, which enacted the mercy rule. Jack Ridenauer and our newcomer as color analyst, John Bainbridge, they have the call.
2 receivers to Phillips' left, 1 to his right. Caesar takes it up the middle, avoids 1 tackle, has 1 man to beat, goes around him, crossing the 20, crossing the 15, picks up a block, down the far sideline, over the 1-yard line, touchdown, Hempfield!
Hempfield's right side of the line must have said, we need some of this action, because they've gone to the right here, I think, 3 straight plays. Kid cut it back, but the initial point of attack was on the right side. Great run. Great run. And great blocking downfield.
As the tremendous public address announcer here for the Hempfield Spartans, our very own Roger Downs says over the loudspeaker, "Hail Caesar," which I'm sure will be a constant call coming from the student section all year long for Hempfield.
Hail Caesar, Roger Downs. No way he actually said that over the PA, did he? I don't believe Jack. There's no way Roger said that.
Jack is an honest man.
What a run, though, man. The camo jerseys look good. I think that's why the Falcons didn't see him weaving in and out of defenders. But, man, that was an incredible run, and that got the fans going, didn't it?
Absolutely. You know, week 0, I saw the Spartans. I said, Jake Phillips, that's the guy that the opponents need to stop. Now I'm wondering maybe if they need to take away Gino Caesar even more. So that's a heck of a 1-2 punch the Spartans have going, as they had a terrific dominant victory.
And shout out to John Bainbridge, too, with his comments after the touchdown. First time we got a chance to have Coach involved in one of our broadcasts. You'll be hearing from him later on this season, too.
Absolutely. Love having a coach up there to give their expertise. Well, it was a good week for Hempfield area, not so much for Franklin Regional, but as they were facing a sizable second-half deficit, the Panthers did stage a frantic rally, and it was quarterback Roman Sarnik who was leading the way. His sterling touchdown run early in the fourth put the Panthers ahead 20-16, as the incomparable Jonathan Whaley provides the captions.
Do the Panthers go topside here? No, they're going to run it. It will be Sarnik around the right side. Sarnik still running inside the 30, still running to the 20, to the 10, 5, touchdown, 47-yard touchdown run to the right by quarterback Roman Sarnik. And FR gets the lead for the first time in this game. Let's take a look at that. Sarnik takes his time. Good vision, reading his blocks, pushes away 1 tackler, says, "You're not putting me down." Runs away from the tackling attempt and goes in standing up. The Panthers lead 19-16.
Well, Roman Sarnik has been exactly what Franklin Regional has needed through one game, and I'm sure that'll continue, Shawn, but they needed someone to take over the reins at quarterback. We talked with Roman before the season started, and he had a lot of confidence. This offense will be able to put up some big numbers. They lose in overtime, but it was a good offensive effort, especially in that second half for he and the Panthers.
Yeah, something to build upon, certainly, but I don't think they feel quite as good as Greater Latrobe does. So as we continue plays of the week, we'll move to the Wildcats. And it was Robbie Fulton that proved his debut. It was no fluke, as he was just as impressive against Franklin Regional. After a pair of long touchdown runs that he had earlier in the game, he hit the equivalent of a walk-off. His touchdown in double overtime won the game for Greater Latrobe. Once again, it was Jonathan who details the play.
2nd and 5. Again, Wildcat, Mr. Fulton. And he's going to try to run this one. Try to get around the right side, and he will get it to the end zone. Touchdown. 5-yard touchdown by Fulton, and they will win this football game on a 5-yard TD run by Robert Fulton. You know what's coming. Can you stop it? and he takes it in. And that will give a 36-33 final win for Greater Latrobe here tonight at Panther Stadium.
Who else would it be than Robbie Fulton, as we said earlier in the show? And the excitement, the celebration was pretty cool to see. The Wildcats were just going absolutely crazy. And, you know, Franklin Regional, the possession before they had to settle for that field goal, that really puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And Robbie comes through with a big touchdown to seal the win.
Yeah, certainly get the feeling that if they go on to have a very successful season, they'll be able to look back to that sequence, winning a game in double overtime maybe as a turning point.
And no matter what happens this season, Shawn, that's one that you never, ever forget.
Absolutely. We continue plays of the week with Greensburg Central Catholic, and we already talked about it, but in just his second varsity game, it was the freshman Samir Crosby who enjoyed a coming-out party. He shined in all three phases of the game, including special teams, as he took a kickoff more than 70 yards to the house to put his team back in the lead against Bishop Canterman in the first quarter on Saturday. John Flickinger and Jack Gridiron set the scene.
Another kickoff in a 7-6 Crusaders lead. Squib kick, and it's Crosby with a lot of speed if he can get outside, and he does, and he's down the sideline. 40-30 gone. Another outstanding play by Crosby and the touchdown, and just like that, the Centurions retake the lead.
What an unbelievable return. What an unbelievable player Crosby has been displaying himself as. I mean, just look at this. Off the squib kick. I feel like it's squib kick Saturday. We've seen so many of them, and he's just able to find himself a little hole. And then again, just getting around that corner, getting around that end, and I just love watching when a player can get around that end and then nobody can catch up. That was the case, and Crosby able to answer with a touchdown for the Centurions.
Usually, as a coach and you game plan, you say, hey, we got to squib it. We don't want to kick it to the two deep men. But look who's out there on the field for the Centurions.
Yeah, tons of weapons.
You got DeLugas out there. You got Crosby out there. They can all take it to the house, and you saw it there.
It was strange, Shawn. Samir was actually kind of an up back in that scenario. There were a lot of short, not a bad option to have up front, right? There were a lot of short kicks, though, and I think that's maybe why he was up there. In that game, both teams were kicking kind of short, but Samir, I mean, he was a human highlight reel, his second ever varsity game, first time I got a chance to see him, and I can't wait to see how he develops.
Yeah, sometimes it's tough to pick plays of the week because he had that leaping Randy Moss-like catch that also could have been on there. So I went with the long touchdown kick return. Can't go wrong there, but certainly a lot of options for the freshman Crosby. We move on with Greensburg-Salem and a guy who is a human highlight reel in his own right. It's Cody Ruprecht. He's always a threat to go to distance with the ball in his hands. He showed that in a win against Derry area. He went 31 yards to put his team up 14-3 in the first quarter. John Flickinger, who's heavily involved in plays of the week this week, and Bob Lisinski have the call.
He and Justin Huss in the backfield, and Tyler Belega in those really good years for the Trojans. As this ball's cut up by Ruprecht, and he does it again. And he goes for the score, this time 31 yards out for the sensational quarterback who played wide receiver pretty much his whole life. But they put him in the quarterback spot, coach, and he's done the job. It's 13-3.
Yeah, he showed great vision there, John. He found that hole, made that cut up, and it's nothing but pay dirt there. Nice run. He's a very good athlete.
Well, we know if Greensburg-Salem's going to have success this year with, again, the amount of players that they lost last year, going to need Cody Ruprecht to do that and do what he does. And that is not only throw the football, but certainly run it from the quarterback position. Heck, he made plays of the week last week, and he didn't even score a touchdown. So, I mean, he's just been absolutely remarkable in terms of running the football for Greensburg-Salem, and I'm sure that's going to continue. It has to for them to have success.
Absolutely. So we go from the Greensburg-Salem side of the game to the Derry area side, and although the outcome was already decided, the Trojans played hard until the final whistle, quite literally, as they scored an unlikely touchdown on the final play. Blake Revore, the quarterback, threw up a Hail Mary, and it was answered by Roman Durazio as he hauled it in. John and Bob provide the commentary.
So congratulations to our winners tonight. A lot of emails. Thank you for watching and listening. This one's launched up there, and Damari almost makes the catch. It's tipped and caught. It's tipped and caught, and what are they going to say? Touchdown, Trojans. Unbelievable. Roman DeRazio off the tip makes the catch.
Well, we didn't have replay, but you get a chance to watch it now on Plays of the Week, and that was really a nice catch by Roman. He's a kid that is very athletic, very talented, but kind of raw, I guess it would be, Shawn, in terms of football talent. But he certainly has the tools, and hopefully he'll be a reason that Derry competes in the conference this year.
Yeah, and certainly that was, game's over, but you want to have a nice little send-off there, something to build upon, and that DeRazio catch on the Hail Mary, final play of the game, certainly was a good way to wrap it up. Well, that's a good way to wrap up our Plays of the Week segment as well. Reminder, by the way, Flick, I love that you put these up on YouTube after the fact. So if you just want to watch Plays of the Week, you obviously want to watch the whole show, Westmoreland on the Gridiron, but a condensed version of Plays of the Week that'll be up on YouTube a little bit later this week as well. You can go back and watch the past week's one as well. We will take a break. When we come back, I had the opportunity to talk to the head coach of the Burrell Buccaneers, Shawn Liotta, his team sitting at 2-0. That's upcoming. And a little bit later, we're going to hear from Gino, Caesar of the Hempfield area Spartans. We'll have a week 2 preview as well. That's as we continue right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
East Suburban Sports Medicine, Western Pennsylvania's #1 physical therapy practice, is now in Greensburg, voted by Trib Live readers as the best of the best. Our new Greensburg clinic provides orthopedic, concussion, lymphedema, and pelvic health therapy. Conveniently located at 133 Donahoe Road, right next to Best Buy. East Suburban Sports Medicine, the best care anywhere, hands down. Call 412-856-8060 and schedule an appointment today.
We know speaking with your teen or your young adult about drugs and alcohol can be challenging, but is necessary. Remember to have a conversation, not a confrontation. Establish good communications, break through barriers, and be firm but loving. Here are some helpful tips. Choose a good place and time to chat. Talk with openness. Actively listen. Offer empathy and support. For more information, visit us online at wedacinc.org. Westmoreland Drug and Alcohol Commission. Prevention is key.
And we continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron each and every Wednesday at 7 p.m. I'm Shawn Meyers, now joined by the head coach of the Burrell Buccaneers, Shawn Liotta. First off, Shawn, thank you for doing this. And I know that you have to be very excited with how your team's performed so far this season, winning your first 2 contests, including a thriller against Deer Lakes last week. What have you seen so far that's led to this success?
Well, Shawn, we appreciate, you having me on and the Westmoreland Sports Network, everything you guys do to cover sports in the county. I mean, it's huge. But for us as a program, obviously we're happy to be 2-0. We're not satisfied. We've taken it week by week. That's our approach. And, we have another one this week with Valley, which is a big rivalry game. So we're looking forward to that. But just extremely proud of the kids. Kids get the credit for all of our success. And, certainly very proud of the efforts they've put in.
Well, you said proud of the efforts. It seems like you have embraced this Burrell program since you've come there. You can see from the background you have right now, you're all about Buccaneers football. It was not a storied tradition, quite frankly. It's a football program that's maybe not known for being year in and year out one that competes, but you're trying to change that. You've done a good job, including making the playoffs last year. How have you seen it grow throughout your time since you've joined Burrell?
Well, yeah, there is a tradition. You look back, Shawn, there's 2 Whitfield championships, which is great. But in recent years, there hasn't been quite as much success. And that's something we want to change. And it all comes down to, getting all of your athletes out for football. I think we've done a great job we've got really strong roster numbers. We've got like 45 kids on the team. We've averaged around that number the last 3 or 4 years. My first season there, we had 19 players on the team. So, that just kind of shows you have to get, kids involved. And really, for us as a program, honestly, my second year here, we went 6-4 and we missed out on the playoffs on a tiebreaker to Mount Pleasant, or else we would have been in the playoffs then. And then, the COVID-19 year as well, we probably would have went in had they took the full amount of teams. So We like where we're at. Obviously, we made the playoffs last year. That was great. We had a brutal schedule to start the season, kind of put us in a hole there. But our kids never wavered. And that's probably the cool thing, and maybe something that to think about is we're 2-0 now. We're doing the same things we did last year, and we were 0-6. We're practicing the same way, we're preparing the same way. The difference is, the kids are out there executing and making those plays, and that's why the kids get all the credit. Not to disappoint any high school football fans out there, but kids matter, players matter. If you have players and you have guys that are tough and guys that work hard, you're going to put yourself in a good situation. And we certainly have very tough, hard-nosed, physical football players here at Burrell, and that's the reason we're off to a 2-0 start.
How important was it to make the playoffs last year? Because you mentioned the record for the season as a whole was not pretty, but you get in with a late surge. I know the playoff game didn't go the way you wanted, but that experience, what does that mean for these players and for the program as a whole?
Oh, that was probably as proud of any team as I've been when those kids were able to get into the playoffs, because, you start your season that way, even though it was a brutal schedule and we knew it. It was a bunch of 4A schools and just schools we had a hard time matching up with. We knew that we could win the games that we needed to get in the playoffs, and they were able to do that. So certainly was very proud of those kids for never failing to believe. And that's probably the other power in high school football of the high school coach. The role of the high school coach is to get your kids to believe. You lay out the game plan, everybody thinks it's about X's and O's and all that stuff. And that's certainly a big part of it, but it's the mindset of your team. Are you preparing your team to believe that they can win the football game? And that's a very big thing. It's a powerful thing. And you're dealing with, we're dealing with 14 to 18-year-old young men here. So, the mindset of them and do they have that swagger, and do they believe that they're the best team on the field? And I think those things are all important. And that's certainly something that, our kids have bought into over the years.
At every level of football and every sport, really, do the coaches sort of stick to what they prefer to do, or do they adjust to the talent that's around them? When you came to Burrell, you had a pretty prolific passing attack. You had a quarterback in Alex Arledge who was really good. He could throw the football all around the yard. And I think that probably the numbers say that you passed more than you ran back then. It is a complete opposite right now. You are running, I don't know if you know the percentage, it's got to be somewhere 90+% of your plays are on the ground, right? So how have you adjusted?
Yeah, I think we're up over 103 rushing attempts, and I want to say 4 passes, and we've actually completed 3 of those passes. One was to the other team, but we did complete those. So, you do what fits your players as a high school coach. Like, hey, I love the no-huddle stuff. I wrote a book on all that stuff. I've done clinics all over the world on spread, no-huddle football. It doesn't matter what I believe in or what I think is the preferred system. It comes down to what players do you have? Does what you do fit your team and the makeup of your team and give your kids the best chance to win? Our kids are, as I said, hard-nosed, physical, smart, and what we do fits that. We run an offense from way, way back, and it's kind of unique. I was talking to a reporter about this earlier. Like, it's kind of like when I started running the spread, 20 some years ago, it was new. So like when you would get film of an opponent, you wouldn't even know how they were going to line up because they weren't playing in spread formations. There wasn't 4 receiver formations, 5 receiver formations. So it'd be a guessing game for you as you were kind of preparing, like, maybe they'll do this, maybe they'll do that. Now, fast forward here 20 years now, all those older coaches have retired that are familiar with these old school offenses and how to stop them and things like that. And most of the guys that you have that are coaching high school football now grew up in the spread world. So they either coached in college or played in college or high school in a spread system or a spread defense. And what I mean by that is they've played in a defensive system that is designed to stop the spread offense. Now we're running something that makes us unique. No one runs what we run, in our conference. It's difficult. It's difficult to prepare for. We have 2 tight ends out there, 3 tight ends sometimes, 2, 3 backs all the time. We're going to run the ball at you. We're going to do things that people don't like you to do. We're going to cut block. We're going to do all those different kind of things that kind of make you uncomfortable as a defense. And we have a ton of misdirection. And you add all that in, it's an offense that you might say, well, it's a little boring. It's tough to stop. It fits our kids. So we're hoping we keep rolling with it. And it's certainly something our kids have embraced.
Well, another thing that has changed throughout your time is a year ago, you had a workhorse running back in Caden DiCaprio, and it seemed like he was getting the ball every single time that you decided to run it. This year, you have so many different guys. Obviously, Devin Beatty has flashed. He's had a good couple of games, but he's far from the only player who's contributing in the run game. So give a shout out to that. And how difficult is that for a coach, or what are the benefits of using multiple different guys all throughout the game?
Oh, yeah, we're unselfish. So our guys know whoever's going to carry the ball, be the hot hand, is going to be the one to do it. Devin Beatty had a phenomenal game last week for us, but he has that kind of ability, and he's going to continue to do that. I mean, he's a guy that should be on your radar. I mean, he's a talented kid. He really is. And I look for him to have even more big breakout games here. And you talk about the other guys. We have another kid that's only a young kid, Mason Jones, who's carried the ball very well. You have Antonio Cook, who's a senior, who's carried the ball well. You have our quarterback, Chase Fenner, who has 4 rushing touchdowns on the year. And it's unselfish, So what I mean by that is, we have guys, they don't care who scores as long as we score. We don't care about stats. Like, we do stats and all that kind of stuff, but that's not our focal point, is what our statistics are. Like, we're trying to win a football game, and I think that, again, that's the mindset. And as much credit for those guys' success, they know it, is those linemen. We've got a line that they're nasty and they get after you. And without those guys and those tight ends blocking, we have Ian Quinn and Aaron Malee kind of anchoring that line. 2 of our seniors, Cam Martin, our center, first-year kid out for football. He's been excellent there at the center position. And we have Noah Love and Luke Boylan are 2 of our other linemen, along with our tight end, Gabe Ziccarelli, another first-year kid out for football. And what we call our swing man, who's our other tight end, is Esau King Buchek. And then our little slot that we use, he's not little. I mean, we use a bunch of them, but we have Reese Kennedy, in that spot. So we've really got a lot of physical football players, and that's why this thing works. This offense doesn't work if you're not physical and you're not disciplined and you're not willing to, like, our philosophy, we want 3 yards of play. We want 3 yards of play. Now, you might say to yourself, Shawn, well, 3 yards, 3 times 3, I'm good on math, but that's 9 yards. You're still short a yard. We're going for that 4th down on 4th and 1 every single time. So if we get anything above that, we make the first down. It's no problem, but we feel good about the way we play in 4th and 1. We feel really, really good about that. So that's kind of our philosophy. It's worked well for us so far, and hopefully we continue to do it.
You're going to begin conference play pretty soon here, but you still have one more non-conference, and it's a big one, as we mentioned, the Valley Vikings. And so you're not in the same conference as them anymore, but I think that every year this is always going to be a meaningful matchup because it's neighboring school districts. It's the communities involved as well. Do you notice that your players get a little bit more geared up for this one?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we try to deny it, but there's no sense denying it. It's the bypass brawl, battle for the bypass, whatever you want to call it. But I told our kids, this is a powerful thing. Our kids that are seniors, they've never lost to Valley. We've won 3 in a row. When I got to Burrell, they had lost 6 in a row to Valley. So we've been able to kind of, turn that tide a little bit. And we'd like to be able to keep that our way. We like to beat Valley. We don't want to lose to Valley. So obviously the game means something to us. We know they're a good team. Coach Hebner is doing a good job over there. They almost beat a pretty good Apollo Ridge team last week, played pretty well. They're opportunistic. They can make some plays. They can make things happen. But we just have to come out and play the way that I think we're capable of playing, and we'll be able to, I think things will go in our favor.
Lastly, you dropped down after making the playoffs in 3A. You're now in 2A, and some familiarity in terms of the opposition. But as a whole, when you look at this conference and you look at the 2A classification, what goals do you have for your team in the long run?
our goal is to make the playoffs. I mean, we want to make the playoffs. Whatever we got to do to get in there to the playoffs, get our invite in there, we want to get in. And then from there, I think we're kind of the team you don't want to see. We're kind of that, in basketball, the Princeton type of, back in the days of they kind of ran the weird offense and the backdoor cuts and all those kind of things. And, we're kind of who you don't want to see that way because, we have the ability, if we come out and play really well, I'm telling you, we have the ability to pull off major upsets with this kind of offense because we have the ability to control that ball for a long time. And if you don't have it, you're not scoring. So, we have the capability to put together some 8, 9, 10-minute drives. We've done that, quite a bit. So we're just, like I say, game by game, Shawn. I think the conference is very good. It's going to be very challenging to make the playoffs in. You've got a lot of teams that really are playing at a high level, have a lot of athletes. That's probably the thing that strikes me when I look at the conference. You see your Steel Valleys and your Sarahs and your Imani Christians. I mean, Imani Christian has, I joked on your pregame show at the beginning of the year about him going out and recruiting half of the, Leroy Johnson, who's a friend of mine, actually played for me in arena football before, but he'll go out and recruit half the city. And sure enough, I see he got Penn State offered another one of his kids. So he's got 2 Penn State offers at a little school with, he's got 30 kids on his roster. 2 of them are offered by Penn State. So what does that tell you?
You should see their basketball roster as well.
Yeah, they're obviously going to be a challenge, So, we'll be ready every week. We're going to come out. This week is Valley, and then we're on to Sarah Catholic after that. So we'll look forward to the challenge. It's just a great group of kids. I can't stress that enough. We have a wonderful, you can see this picture. Here's our seniors. That's actually our senior group. What a wonderful group of kids. The kids that we talked about that made the impact in the last game weren't even seniors though. Devin Beatty led us there on offense, and he's a junior. And Tristan Brothers, 16 tackles and an interception in overtime as a linebacker. So he's a guy to keep an eye on. Tristan Brothers, only a junior, all over the field. Like I said, 16 tackles and interception. I think we'll continue to see good things from him, on the defensive side. But again, we have wonderful kids. I'm proud to be their coach, proud to be the coach here at Burrell, and we're having a lot of fun, and we're hoping to keep it rolling.
Well, Shawn, continue having fun. Thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations on a good start. Make sure you keep it up the rest of 2022.
Thank you so much.
That's Shawn Liotta, head coach of the Burrell Buccaneers. We'll take a break and continue with more right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.
Now is the time to save at Sendell Subaru in Greensburg. We've got inventory on the lot and more on the way. Forester, Outback, Ascent, Legacy, and more. Get a great deal on a new 2022 Subaru. Check out SendellSubaru.com today. Looking to turn your current vehicle into cash? Sendell pays top dollar. Get your best deal at Sendell Subaru, Route 30 Greensburg, SendellSubaru.com. We would love to meet you.
The Collision Shop by Jason Mignone is your one-stop shop for all things auto body repair. Our experienced technicians and state-of-the-art facilities have you covered on both passenger and heavy-duty vehicle repairs, including scratches, scrapes, and dents, free estimates, body repairs, welding, refinishing, glass replacement, and more. Our all-new alignment and calibration shop has the tooling, equipment, and staffing to ensure top-quality alignment and calibration adjustments for your vehicle. Our friendly office staff is more than happy to assist you through every step of your vehicle's repair process. Visit the Collision Shop by Jason for our complete list of services.
We continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Shawn and Dan, we thank Shawn Liotta, the head coach of the Burrell Buccaneers, so much. Again, Jonathan Whaley talked to him at our kickoff show. He is such an interesting guy, and I am far from a football expert, but I feel like I always learn something when I talk to him, when I listen to him, when I read something that he says. He's just I will say he's a football genius to an extent.
Well, I already told him when he retires and when he hangs up the whistle, he has to work for WSN. Can you imagine? We don't have a telestrator right now, but Shawn, if you come and work for us when you are done, you don't need to do it now. When you're done, I will make sure I have a telestrator for you, because I think you can definitely educate some people, including us, for sure.
You put him with Whaley, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, he can telestrate while Jonathan talks.
Perfect. So we appreciate him taking the time, as always. Much deserved. Good chance to shine a light on the Burrell Buccaneers that are off to a nice start, winning their 2 games after making the playoffs with a strong finish. So maybe some carryover from 2021's conclusion to the start of 2020.
And it always feels good for those guys, I'm sure, to beat Deer Lakes, right? Got that rivalry thing going.
Well, you say rivalry. There's another one on the horizon. They're playing Valley this week. That's always a big game. Well, he was our coach interview of the week, but we're going to have Gino Caesar for our player interview of the week. And Flick, it was the vote of the public that determined it was Hail Caesar, to steal a line from one Roger Downs. Second straight week that the Spartans faithful got out and stuffed the ballot boxes, if you will.
They did. And don't forget, if your favorite player didn't win the first 2 weeks, keep on voting. Make sure you share to all of your social media platforms as we share the nominees to our social media platforms. But congratulations to Gino. We mentioned his stats earlier, 149 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. The Spartans are 2-0. Robbie Fulton was certainly a worthy nominee as well. Scores the game-winning touchdown in overtime. He rushes for over 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. Of course, Robbie Labuda, we talked about his stats earlier as well. Almost 250 on the ground and 3 scores. And Hayden Siraki did a lot of different things for Ligonier Valley this week. 93 yards and a touchdown. He caught a touchdown pass. He returned a kickoff for a score. And he also made interception on defense. And this Ligonier Valley team, man, it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of traverse the conference play and everything this year, but they're off to a great start and they have a lot of confidence rolling this year as well. So don't forget, we have the voting for you. Typically on Sunday, usually we post, or Monday we'll post the nominees, and you'll have an opportunity to vote for who you think should win Player of the Week. And of course, every player that wins Player of the Week, you get a chance to talk with me on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. Not a great award, I know, but at least you get a chance to promote your team, promote yourself a little bit, and have a little bit of fun. So congratulations to all the nominees. And again, like we said last week, I'm sure we haven't seen the last of Robbie Fulton, Robbie Labuda, and Hayden Siraki.
Yeah, those guys will be around, I would think, most weeks until they finally do win at some point. But for now, it is Gino Caesar, the deserving winner for the Hempfield area Spartans. And as Flick mentioned, he had a chance to talk to Gino. We'll hear that upcoming as we continue here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron. A little bit later, we will have the Week 2 preview as well. So you don't want to go anywhere. Stick around each and every Wednesday, 7 p.m. It's here on the Westmoreland Sports Network.
That's the power of Bowser.
Score big with the Bowser family of dealerships featuring GMC, Buick, Cadillac, Subaru, Hyundai, and Nissan. Looking for a new car, truck, or SUV? Visit powerofbowser.com 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to find your perfect vehicle. Get the absolute best price and the best car buying experience anywhere. It's the power of the Bowser family of dealerships. Route 51 South on top of the hill.
If you had to file an insurance claim, would your insurance coverage score a touchdown, or would you be sacked for a financial loss? At Stevenson Insurance Associates, you'll call the right play when it comes to your insurance coverage. Don't fumble the opportunity to score points with our customer service and superior low-cost policies. You need to make the right call to Stevenson Insurance Associates at 724-832-9889.
Welcome back to Westmoreland on the Gridiron here on the Westmoreland Sports Network. It is time to talk with our Week 1 Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. He is Gino Caesar from the Hempfield area Spartans. Now, we talked with Gino last year as well. He won a Player of the Week. But now you get to see what he looks like other than Friday nights. So, Gino, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and congratulations on winning Player of the Week again.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So Gino ran for 149 yards and 4 touchdowns last week in the Spartans win over the Connellsville Falcons. So you guys are 2-0. First time Hempfield wins their first 2 games of the season since 2016 when the Spartans went 3-0. So I have to ask you first, Gino, just how good it feels to be 2-0.
It feels great. I mean, for me personally, I can't remember the last time on a Hempfield team that I started 2-0. It feels amazing.
The offense has scored 98 points in the first, I say 2 games, but I guess it was 6 quarters because halftime is when the game ended against Greensburg-Salem because of the lightning delay there. But what has been the biggest reason for your success offensively, do you think?
Honestly, our tempo, it really helps us, especially in practice. Whenever we're running that tempo, we're getting used to it every single day. And like, we've been running it all summer, so we're all conditioned very well. And when it comes on the field Friday night, I mean, it's just like a practice. It's just normal.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that up-tempo offense. I asked your teammate, Jake Phillips, quarterback, last week about that. And so when was it kind of implemented? How excited were you when you found out that you guys would be running that style of offense this year?
So we tried running it last year a little bit, but with the coaches coming in so late, we couldn't really get our plays in and know them to the point where we could run the tempo offense. But now that we've had them, we know pretty much all the plays, and we can run them at that tempo. And I'm really excited about the offense. I think it's great.
And you mentioned, or Jake mentioned, and I'm pretty sure you agree, the offensive line has to be pretty athletic and have some good endurance to be able to move this quickly up to the ball and everything. What have you seen from them that has impressed you, Gino?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely their endurance. You know, they're on the ball right when they're ready to snap it. All of them are ready at all times, and their endurance it's great. You can't ask for anything from the line.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you ran for 149 yards, 4 touchdowns against Connellsville. What was really clicking for you guys on the ground?
Mostly our tempo, but it was our O-line. I mean, they were just making holes, and I was just hitting them. That's what happened.
Well, the one real long run we had on our plays of the week just a couple of moments ago, can you kind of take us through the I don't know which touchdown that was for you, but it was a fairly long run. You ran over a kid at the goal line, if you can recall that one. What kind of went right for you on that play?
Yeah, so the line blocked it good, and I saw a cutback, so I just hit it, and then I kept running. And then, honestly, Ian Tufts, he was that receiver, and he came flying down, and I, waited for him a little bit. He kind of lead blocked me, and I went right into the end zone. I mean, it was just a team effort play from all standpoints.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not always about the offensive line. You got to have everybody blocking, and Ian threw a nice block for you. That's certainly certainly a good thing. What would you say that you have specifically grown in terms of being a running back? What specifically have you seen improve in your game since last year even?
Since last year, I've improved my speed a ton. I worked out all offseason with Coach Tim Cortazzo and FSQ, and Coach Tyler Zimmer too. They all helped me get my speed right and just knowing the position better. Last year was my first year playing running back, and this year I feel like I can just see the field better from the standpoint.
Yeah, Tyler's a great guy. Tim's one of our guys too. So those are two perfect strength and conditioning coaches to have to get you ready for the season. That's for sure. Give those guys a shout out. What would you say your biggest strengths are then as a running back?
Probably just how physical and hard I run. I run pretty hard, and just being I'm a power back, but I've kind of upped my speed. So I kind of feel like I'm a little bit both now.
So you guys play Latrobe on Friday. Both teams are 2-0. I know it's not a conference game, but it's basically a rivalry game. You guys play each other in so many different sports. Is there some extra juice around practice this week? Some extra excitement to play this game?
Oh yeah, we're really excited for this game. You know, Latrobe 2-0, we're 2-0. It's just like a natural rivalry, if you would say, because we haven't played them in football in a few years, but it's just we're so close. It's just a rivalry in that way. And yeah, we're pumped up at practice this week and ready to go.
I've seen Latrobe play, not in person, but our broadcast the first couple of weeks. And obviously they have a running back that transferred in. I'm sure you know about him, Robbie Fulton, who's had a huge couple of weeks. So from your perspective, how do you guys slow him down defensively? And what do you have to do really on both sides of the ball to win on Friday?
You know, we just got to play our game. That's what we just got to play how we play, fly around, get to the football, all 11 hats at all times.
Talking with Gino Caesar, our Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week for Week 1. Now, Gino, you went through our Pick 6 questions last year. There might be a question or two that's similar, but I tried to change things up on you. So you ready for these?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So first, what is the one thing you enjoy most about playing football?
Just being around my friends, honestly. It's really nice just seeing them dudes all for like summer the whole way to like October, November. It's really nice being around all my friends for that long period of time. It's just like a bond, you know, it's like a family.
So when you're not playing football, working out, what are you doing when you're off the field? What are some of the things you like to do to keep yourself busy?
I like to golf and fish.
I think we talked about that last year, didn't we?
Yeah.
And what your favorite golf course would be?
Probably Norvelt.
Okay. Yeah, I think I remember us talking about that last year. How about your favorite fast food restaurant? What would that be and why?
I don't really know if it's considered fast food, but probably Chipotle because, I mean, it's a great meal always, and it's fast. So,
yeah, I had a feeling when you said it, you're not sure if it's fast food or not, because I think anytime I ask someone that and they start that response, they'll say Chipotle. So, yeah, I guess it's kind of fast. It's more healthy, I would think, than going to Wendy's or McDonald's or something. How about your favorite sports movie?
My favorite sports movie, probably, it's a football movie. Gridiron Gang. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I did. Actually, it was just on the other night. I was watching a little bit of it with Rock.
Yeah.
That's an underrated movie. Not a lot of people talk about that movie, but it's really good, isn't it?
It's a really good movie, yeah.
So how about this question? If you were stuck on a deserted island with a teammate, just one teammate, who would you pick and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. But probably Jake, honestly, because he is really creative with his, he would think of some stuff that would probably help us survive.
You got that high IQ?
Yeah, he does.
Can maybe build a raft and get you guys out of there or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Finally, Gino, who's had the biggest influence on you in your life, would you say?
I would say my brother, probably. He pushes me and he really helps me get like nutrition wise. He lifts weights a ton and he knows his stuff. He helps me with what I need to eat and what I don't need to eat and just getting ready for the season and stuff. He prepares me weightlifting too and all that.
One thing that I forgot to ask you about is your college plans. Do you know what you'd like to do? Are you kind of considering some things right now? Do you want to play football in college?
Yeah, I definitely want to play football in college. I'm just not really sure where yet.
Okay. Well, you certainly have some time through your senior year. You're going to be putting more of that film out there, and I'm sure you're going to be getting more attention as you go through your senior year from the college coaches. How about a Steelers prediction? Do we have a record?
I don't really know. I'm not that big of a Steelers fan, honestly.
Are you a fan of what NFL team are you a fan of then, if you're not a fan of the Steelers?
Green Bay Packers.
Okay, we'll give us the Packers. They lost all their wide receivers. You think Aaron Rodgers will still be all right?
Yeah, he'll be good. I mean, back-to-back MVP. He'll have another good year.
No doubt. What do you think for the Packers this year then? We'll put that out there.
Probably like the same record that they've had the last 3 years, 13-3.
Yeah. One extra win because I guess there's one extra game this year, right?
Yeah.
It's a 17-game season, which is weird to get used to.
But yeah, it is.
We'd rather have that than one more preseason game for sure. Gino, this was great. Thank you so much, man. Congratulations on all your success, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yep, thank you for having me.
That is Gino Caesar, Hempfield area Spartan senior running back, as he wins our Westmoreland Sports Network Player of the Week. We will continue with Westmoreland on the Gridiron, talk about Hempfield and Latrobe and other matchups coming up right after these messages.
D'Annunzio's Italian Restaurants is open 7 days a week at all 3 of our locations, Jeanette, Monroeville, and Latrobe. We invite you to join us for our specials. Monday, the special is spaghetti. Tuesday, it's raviolis. Wednesday, it's lasagna. And Thursday, it's chicken parmesan or chicken romano. Be sure to try our drink specials and our fabulous desserts. And remember, we also have takeout available at all 3 locations.
Seton Hill University is more than academics. It's an experience. It's student clubs, camaraderie, leadership opportunities, individualized guidance from faculty, and much more. Here, you'll join a community dedicated to transforming the world. With an above-average career placement rate and career services for life, Seton Hill University will support you far beyond graduation day. Start your Seton Hill experience by scheduling a campus visit at setonhill.edu/visit.
Welcome back, and we thank Gino Caesar of the Hempfield area Spartans. Flick, you get a lot of great interviews with these young men, and again, Spartans, it's all Hempfield area right now. Enjoy it while you can. It reminds me of Southmoreland Scotties, like 2 years ago. They won, I think, 3 straight Player of the Week votes.
They did. And, Jeanette in the past, Derry, when they had their really good seasons, they were filling that ballot box or stuffing the ballot box as well. So that's what you have to do to get your favorite player to win it. But very well-spoken young men so far here for the Hempfield Spartans. Thank you so much to Jake Phillips from last week and now Gino Caesar this week. And
if the Spartans make it 3 straight weeks for Player of the Week, then something must have gone awfully right, as we'll get to all of the week 2 games now.
Tell you what, you got Eli Benekonski having a big season. Ian Tufts.
Tufts.
Had 4 for 100 yards last week. So who knows?
Yeah, he's a good player. So that means, again, that they will have probably done well in week 2. So let's look at all the matchups that we have. We'll start with the ones that we will have broadcasts of this Friday. And we've got 3 different video broadcasts. We'll begin with an old matchup that mattered in conference play previously. Now it's a non-conference, but I think that the intensity will still be there. It's Woodland Hills at Penn Trafford, 7:30 start time. Yes, Penn Trafford loves those 7:30 starts. The Warriors look to bounce back. The Wolverines come to town. Last year, it was a pretty good matchup that Penn Trafford ultimately was able to kind of gain a little bit of separation in the second half. It was also a milestone last year when the Warriors won. Win number 100 for John Ruane. He's now obviously eclipsed that, but certainly the Wolverines looking for payback. Tim Bostard always has a solid team. Really, the most impressive thing about this is Wolverines, they were a 3A team by enrollment, opted to play up in 5A. Again, it's non-conference, but it is a matchup of 5A schools. Should be a good one at Penn Trafford.
Yeah, and they played Gateway pretty tough last week. I know they didn't score any points, but they only give up 21 to a very explosive Gateway team. So again, you look at that from Woodland Hills side of things. I'm sure maybe they wouldn't say that they played a great game or anything, but again, from an observer, played pretty tough against a really good Gateway team. So it will not be easy for Penn Trafford to bounce back this week.
And John Ruane, an old Gateway guy, he knows Woodland Hills and the tradition of that program, and it speaks for itself. I think they've sent 14 guys to the NFL in just about 30 or so years. So always a great program there with the Wolverines. Another team that's looking to bounce back, the Norwin Knights. They will host Fox Chapel. That is a video broadcast at 7. Norwin has had a rough go, but just have not been able to get the offense going. They've tried some different things. We'll see if it pays any more dividends in this third opportunity for the Knights. This one should be a fun one. Southmoreland at Derry area. That'll be on video as well. And that is another Westmoreland County matchup. 2 teams looking for their first win. 2 head coaches looking for their first win as well. And Tim Bukowski at Southmoreland, Mike Arone at Derry area. One of them is going to be awfully happy to get that first W.
Yeah, I think so. And, going back to earlier in the show when we were giving the scores and talking about, Derry and even Jeanette, I think we've seen some things this year from Derry and Jeanette that shows that it's going to be different years for both of those teams. Not saying they're going to go out and win a Whitfield championship, but compared to how it was last year with Derry not winning any, Jeanette just winning 1 game, I think we are seeing those building blocks right now for both of those teams. Derry competed better against Greensburg-Salem last week. Jeanette has competed better against the first 2 teams of the season that they have played. So that's good to see. And then, of course, Southmoreland, I know they're 0-2, but, they've handled themselves fairly well in the first 2 games of the season, not as if they got blown out or anything by Ligonier Valley or McGuffey. They were able to put some points on the board. So I think this will be a good matchup for both teams. Again, looking for a victory.
Yeah, and that Kiefer to Keffer connection. That's a tongue twister, but it's been a good one so far.
I'll go over it with my brother. We'll sit down and do it like Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, he's still going to mess it up probably at some point.
I agree.
But it's okay. It's understamenable.
As long as he says DeRazio, Shawn, he'll be okay.
Yeah, that one's on me. So I mentioned that that's a good Westmoreland battle. Well, this next one, I don't know if anyone in the world heading into the season would have said that the biggest Westmoreland County matchup in week 2 might be Hempfield area at Greater Latrobe. But I think that's the case this week. We're going to have a broadcast of that one on audio. Really, 2 teams that are riding high. They've done it in different ways because the Wildcats needed overtime. Spartans have really just destroyed their first 2 opponents. But I am excited to see how this one plays out.
We've been waiting for this for so long. This is fun. Hempfield undefeated, and yes, I understand. They play a couple of teams they're supposed to beat, and Latrobe plays one team they're supposed to beat, and then wins an overtime thriller. But who cares about how they got here? Both teams are 2-0, and they're playing for the first time in a little while. And when you talk about rivalries, there is a rivalry between Hempfield and Latrobe as well. Of course, these teams always play each other in many other sports, so I think this makes it fun. I mean, again, usually you don't see Latrobe and Hempfield playing each other with both teams riding high like they are right now. But they are, and it should be a packed Memorial Stadium. I think, as you mentioned, Shawn, this game, I know we always say, oh, this game should be great. This game should be a lot of fun. This game really should be a lot of fun. And right now, I think it's a toss-up to see who's going to win it.
I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. At this point, we talked about all the big-time skill guys on Hempfield area and then Fulton on Greater Latrobe as well. So should be enjoyable. And you mentioned it's the first time they've played in a while. Well, I did my weekly interview with Ron Prady for the Latrobe Bulletin preview that I write. And he said, we saw Hempfield last year. And he was to Penn Trafford. That's what he's talking about. So he does have some familiarity playing the Spartans. Mm-hmm. And he said the difference from a year ago to this year, when he looks at Hempfield area, the entire team, not just Jake Phillips, who's been great, the entire team just looks more confident because they played in the highest classification. They took their lumps, but now theoretically, everything should be a little bit easier for them, right? They've dropped down. They've played smaller schools, and Latrobe is a smaller school. So it's just, they have that confidence that we played the biggest classification, the best of the best. Now things in the second year of the system, playing maybe a little bit more equal competition should be easier. And certainly they just look just like that for Hempfield area through a couple of weeks.
And I'm sure Jake Phillips is very excited for this game as well, with his comment about playing local teams.
Yes.
When we talked to him during training camp. So
doesn't want to play teams in the South Hills.
No, those dudes from Pittsburgh. We want to play teams that we play in other sports as well.
Absolutely. The other game we will have a broadcast of, Franklin Regional at Connellsville, as the Panthers look to bounce back after that heartbreaking loss in their first game of the season. Other games around Westmoreland County, Kiski area at Laurel Highlands. Coach Albert will have to devise a game plan to stop Gallagher and DeShields after they were that potent connection last week. How about Bell Vernon area at McKeesport? Man, that is a good one. Yeah. That was a great conference showdown the last couple of years. Now it's non-conference, but two teams that have title aspirations.
And that was a game that Bell Vernon won pretty handily last year. And, man, we saw McKeesport firsthand last week, Shawn.
They're better this year, I think.
I think so, too. So, I mean, anything could happen for sure, but I think this game will be a lot closer, especially playing now at McKeesport, than it was last year. We'll see who takes it in the end.
And I want to give a shout out. We already mentioned Bobby Boyd, but I need to look specifically. Go back if you want to watch one of the best runs. And I thought about using it for Plays of the Week. His touchdown run with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter to make it 19-7. That's one of the best runs that I've seen at the high school level.
Yeah,
he showed it all. It was the power, the speed, the vision, just an incredible player. And certainly the Leopards will have their hands full trying to stop Bobby Boyd. And quite frankly, the Tigers are going to have their hands full trying to stop Quentin Martin on the other end. Should be a fun match.
A great show. Yeah, get your popcorn ready.
Absolutely. Greensburg-Salem at Ligonier Valley. We mentioned the Rams now sitting at 2-0. Roger Vital continues year in and year out to put winning teams on the field, even though he lost so many key seniors from a year ago. McGuffey at Mount Pleasant area. All these, as we mentioned, they're non-conference, but I think there is some juice behind some of these games. So the Highlanders will play against the Vikings, two teams that look to build on pretty solid starts to this season. We mentioned it before, talking about Coach Shawn Liotta. It is Burrell at Valley. That used to be a great conference matchup. They kept it intact, and the Buccaneers and the Vikings do battle. And Dave Huebner looking for his first victory, guiding the Vikings. They've been kind of competitive. Burrell looking to go to 3-0. That's a great showdown between those neighboring schools there in Westmoreland County. Charleroi at York is a 7 o'clock start time. Travels to play at Jefferson Morgan as the Jayhawks look to get their first W. West Green at Greensburg Central Catholic. Centurions will be home for the first time, looking to get back in the win column. And then Monessen at Fraser to round out the high school ledger. Couple of college games as well. Flick, we will take the trek across the state of Pennsylvania, at least halfway across the state. Seton Hill at Shippensburg Saturday at 1 o'clock, video broadcast. We start at noon, which means we will probably have to wake up pretty early on Saturday. Yeah, I mean, it's okay because Seton Hill will make it worthwhile because the Griffins are going to come back and they're going to have a great bounce back performance, I think.
Well, they better after, waking up so early. We have got to wake up. I'm sure that's the first thing Dan Day says to them. The WSN crew was just out doing high school football games and they have to travel. No, I'm sure he's not saying any of that. We're hoping for a bounce back. I was just looking at Shippensburg. They lost the first game of the season to West Virginia State. However, Shippensburg had a really good year last year. They were 9-2. I don't know if they lost a lot of seniors or not, but we'll find out. It's always certainly tough to play in the PSAC, tough to play on the road. And Shippensburg, I don't know how long ago Seton Hill played there, but we broadcast the game, and it was a fun game to broadcast in terms of the atmosphere, the band that Shippensburg has. So this should be a lot of fun.
Is there anything I should know? Are they going to be like shooting cannons off near us or anything?
No cannons to scare us. That's West Virginia that normally does. I think it was Glenville State that would shoot the cannons.
We're not going to be like on a rooftop in the rain.
Weekland was doing push-ups for some reason, trying to stay warm. Yeah, all of that stuff. I think we should be okay, but I don't remember.
All right, good enough. Well, we'll see if the Griffins can bounce back again. We start that one an hour before for the pregame for the infamous Dan and Dan show. Always enjoy hearing from the head man with the Griffins. St. Vincent will look to bounce back as well. They'll remain at home. 1:00, they will host Washington and Jefferson to round out the week 2 schedule across Westmoreland County. Flick, any final thoughts from tonight?
Just really excited for this week. I mean, there's some really, really good games. I mean, we talked already about Hempfield and Latrobe. That should be very interesting. Can Penn Trafford bounce back against Woodland Hills, who, again, played pretty tough against Gateway last week? And then even Greensburg-Salem, Ligonier Valley is interesting, right? I mean, those two teams, when Ligonier was in the Heritage Conference, you would have never thought that they would ever play against Greensburg-Salem just because even the classifications. Maybe they'd play a non-conference game or something, but that should be an interesting game as well. Belle Vernon and McKeesport. So we have some really good matchups this week. Derry, Southmoreland. Really excited about those, and certainly hope everybody continues to follow us every Friday night. Not only our live broadcast, but all the tweets of the scores. We have the scores on top of our website, the front page at westmorelandsports.com, and all the written content and Recruiting Thursday and all the videos that we have for everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And, hey, man, we're hoping for – the weather looks good. The weather this week's been terrible, but Friday, crossing our fingers, I'm knocking on wood, Friday looks okay, thankfully. So let's do it.
Well, hey, as long as we're under shelter, football's kind of fun in the rain too, right? I mean, it's not the end of the world as long as our equipment's okay.
I was going to say, at Penn Trafford, I love being on top, but the wind could blow the rain inward. So for this week, let's not even mess with any of that.
Yeah.
And Derry too, we're going to get soaked there if it rains, Shawn. So just take back what you said. I don't care about football in the rain.
It's
from a business standpoint. Yeah. From a fan standpoint, yeah, let's do it.
It's going to be clear skies.
Yes,
Friday, of course.
Lovely.
Perfect. Well, that'll do it for this edition. But as you mentioned briefly, Flick, always, every single day, check out westmorelandsports.com. Not only do we have a ton of football stuff there, including the high school football preview that's out every Friday morning. We have the notebook that highlights a lot of what's going on in high school football, but we also have soccer going on. You can check out the broadcasts we have of that. We have all of the fall sports. And then, of course, Friday nights and Saturdays, Westmoreland Sports is the place you got to be tuning in each and every week to get the latest with all of our high school football teams and college teams in the area. But for now, let's put a bow on this edition. I want to thank our great guest, Shawn Liotta, the head coach of the Burrell Buccaneers, and Gino Caesar for the Hempfield area Spartans. For my co-host, Dan Flickinger, Shawn Meyers signing off. We'll catch you again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. It'll be right here on Westmoreland on the Gridiron.